women bring very unique and distinctive perspectives to judicial thinking process. Whether women are entitled to be enrolled as vakils or pleaders of the courts. I have broken down the topic for discussion today into 5 subtopics. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I will not be taking too much of your time, but I would request your attention to this topic, as it is something that we have to discuss in order to ensure that the women in profession today have a smooth way ahead of them for excellence. Now, the invitation for this program has, particularly for this session, has a very curious heading. It says 11:30 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. there will be a session on quote-unquote lady advocates. I was surprised as to what this could mean, because if you look at the Advocates Act, I know I'm faced with a room full of advocates, so I can speak some legal jargon in front of all of you. If you look at the Advocates Act, Section 2, which defines various terms, defines in 2(1)(a) an advocate in a gender-neutral fashion. It says, meaning of an advocate is an advocate entered in any role under the provisions of this Act. So when there is no distinction between a male advocate and a female advocate, why do we need a separate session to discuss lady advocates? Do we? I would believe so. One of the major reasons why we need this is because both in 2023 and 2025, the Honorable Law Ministers on the floor of the House had said categorically that the number of women advocates in the profession are roughly about 15% in 2023 and about 17% in 2025. So that's an increase of about 2% in the last 2 years. It's a heartening increase, but the numbers are certainly not enough. And this number diminishes as the roles become more and more senior. For instance, if you look at the number of designated senior advocates, they are a fraction of the total number of designated advocates. And as we approach leadership roles or constitutional positions, the number becomes even less, and it becomes rather minuscule. Now, this pool of women advocates form the base. They form the base for leadership positions, not only in the law, because we look to them to fill the position of district judges, judges in constitutional courts, academia, politics, administration, so many other aspects of society. So a robust base of women legal professionals is imperative and critical to our development. So I said today we have, for every 100 lawyers, we have got 17 women. It was not always like this. A century ago, it was a lot worse. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Now, the Legal Practitioners Act 1884 provided for proper persons to be advocates of the court. This was subject to the rules. And under the Legal Practitioners Act 1879, a practitioner was defined as an advocate, a vakil, or an attorney of any high court, a pleader, muktar, or a revenue agent. So you see, the definition is gender neutral. It doesn't discriminate between either a male enrolling to be an advocate or a female enrolling to be an advocate. But the issue that was faced by the high courts, first by the Calcutta High Court and then by the Patna High Court, was whether women are entitled to be enrolled as vakils or pleaders of the courts. You would have all read the very famous and landmark judgment in the case of Miss Hazarab Bi, who secured a BL degree, but when she went to enroll herself before the Patna Bar, she was refused enrollment. She challenged it before the Patna High Court. And the court unfortunately said that the Legal Practitioners Act referred only to males and not to females. Why? Because since 1793, no woman had been admitted to the roles of pleaders. 1793, incidentally, is the year when the Bengal regulation had been passed, under which the vakils had been appointed for the first time. So while dismissing the case of Hazarab Bi, Dawson Miller, who was the Chief Justice who was presiding over the bench, observed, and I quote, please bear with me, I'll just read 4 lines from his judgment. It is not shown that women ever acted as pleaders in the courts of this country. On the contrary, the enactments referred to show that they have been invariably excluded, not by a direct prohibition, but inferentially by words appropriate only to the male sex, as though the matter were one settled by inverterate usage and requiring no express legislation. So Miss Hazarab lost. Luckily, the Legal Practitioners Women's Act, Act 23 of 1923 was enacted, that expressly provided that no woman by reason of her gender alone will be disqualified by being admitted to or enrolled as a legal practitioner. So today we are in 2025. I addressed the Bar Council of India in 2023, and we were talking about equality or parity in profession. And in 2023, we had completed 100 years, a century of that amendment having been made. I said the wheel has come full circle. And it has been 100 years from the year when women fought for and were granted the right to practice law. And today in our panel, we've got six, apart from me, we have got six very eminent women professionals. I occupy a constitutional position. My sister, who was expected to be here from the Rajasthan High Court, occupies a constitutional position. And we are all women here discussing issues concerning women in the law. Now, would you call that progress? I would. So today, we don't have to talk about entry, because entry is guaranteed. Entry is available. But the need of the hour is something quite different. Now the questions that we ask will be, one, how do we increase the effective number of women practicing? How do we ensure that a woman stays in practice? She may enter into practice, but can she stay there? That is what we discuss. How do we forge a conducive and an egalitarian working atmosphere for women's advocates? You'll be aware of the recent decision of the Supreme Court in Meena A. Jaktab versus Bar Council of India and other matters, where the Supreme Court has directed that 30% representation should be ensured for women within bar associations. So you see, it's a work in progress. We encounter situations providing for discrimination, lack of parity as we go, and as people in positions of power, people who can make a difference, the answer will have to be provided by each one of us by providing for a resolution. Meena Jaktab went to the Supreme Court with a petition saying, give me representation of women in bar associations. And she succeeded. And on the strength of her success, other women will be able to have positions of power. So all that is required is a will and a creative mind. Now the second component of my presentation, like I told you, I have 5 components of the presentation. The second component of my presentation is, why are we talking about this? What are the advantages? Why do we have a panel to discuss challenges? Why do we have a room full of professionals to discuss what we recognize is an important question that has to be addressed? What are the advantages if women professionals participate in the justice delivery system? The first and foremost reason is very evident. Judicial decisions reflect underlying thought processes, and they significantly shape social structures. Therefore, if we want justice to be fair, if we want it to be balanced, if we want it to be effective, it requires representation from both genders in judicial reasoning. You all know what Vivekananda said about equal participation of men and women. He likened every aspect of society to a bird. And he said that the 2 wings of a bird will be either men or women. So the 2 wings are, one is a male and the other is a female. And if you want society to perform effectively in all branches, this is not just in the law, but in all branches, both wings have to flap equally powerfully. If you have only one wing flap powerfully, it is going to reduce the speed of the bird. It is going to reduce the efficiency of the flight. Therefore, this applies equally well to the law also. Women bring very unique and distinctive perspectives to judicial thinking process. They bring their lived experiences, including experiences of prejudice and bias, and the system cannot be deprived of their thoughts, and particularly the empathy that we women bring to a collective thinking process. And our presence in the profession challenges patriarchal norms and sends a very powerful message to society that women are capable of holding positions of authority and responsibility. So that is a reason for this session today.